Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass coverage walkthrough. Me talking a lot for however long. We got the Bear Druid up next. So we've done Feral and Balance already. They're right here on the channel. If you haven't seen those videos, you want to go check those out. If you are interested, then please feel free. Of course, everything is put together, organized, and listed and linked from the whole VOD to the dungeon run. This dungeon run, for example, because I do these on every single spec, and I'll do them twice. Today, I was joined by Ketsu from Wowhead and Nobbel. Had some good bants in that one. That, of course, will be on the channel guide. That's over on my Twitch channel, so you can find the VOD for that if you'd like. But overall, this video here today, we have some notes to talk about and some things to discuss. Of course, I am going to imagine you have already read a Wowhead post or the MMO champion write-up, so I'm not going to go over every single thing, but all of these things we're going over today are brought to you in part by my merch. This one, for example, you can't see my face anymore, but hopefully you can see the shirt. This is the little wolf and little pupper gray mane. This was made by Fabelina. She's made a ton of merch together. Links are down below in the description if you would like to support what I do here with some physical things in the real world and allow me to keep working with other artists to keep making merch. We'll have 2 more merch items dropping sometime during this whole Shadowlands junket thing, so I'll let you know when those are out, but links down below in the description if you would like to get any physical stuff and allow me to keep doing what I do on the internet. So, Bear Druid. Dramatic pause for effect. Let me grab my notes. To be quite honest with you, it's still the Bear Druid. Has a couple of different changes as the current switch over and some pain points, just like the kitty cat druids. But there are some neat things here, and I think that the biggest thing we don't know yet about is how legendaries are going to affect and how covenant abilities will shore up potential, not weaknesses, but maybe boring parts or less fun or interactive sections of a spec. The big pog, and can we get some pogs in chat for this one in particular? Berserk is back. And that was taken away from you. We had to dig this up. So you haven't had Berserk. It was taken away leaving Warlords. You had no Berserk at all of Legion, and no Berserk as you currently don't have right now in Battle for Azeroth. So it is back. And the baseline Berserk, pretty good. The Guardian of Ursoc, pretty good, but it used to be that weird like lacerate damage plus percentage and mangle reset things, blah blah blah. And the last version of Berserk that you had in the game was back in Mop and Warlords, which was just the mangle hits 3 targets with no cooldown for 10 seconds. But since then, in Legion, you had Berserk removed, but then you got the Gore passive where mangle procs could be reset by other things. But the Shadowlands version is updated quite a bit. Let's jump into some talents and spellbook things and we'll go over some stuff. There's not really a lot of things I'll need to hit on a target dummy here because this is Bear. Again, if you want the actual like Bear gameplay, that's a separate section. That's the chunk that goes up on Twitter. Well, sure, but it goes up on Twitch, the archive channel guide. For every single class though, so we have Restoration Druid up next. That's going to be like almost a full dungeon run, would be healing, but it's not going to be commentary and like banter section. It's going to be gameplay background, B-roll, and then I'm going to talk about like all 3 and sort of summarize everything in like a more concise, like just brain fart kind of a manner. So that's going to coming out next. But talk about Berserk. It's right here. It's back. We'll move it over here for you. So it's a 15-second duration, 3-minute cooldown. It reduces the cooldowns of all your main abilities here, right? So Mangle, Thrash, Growl, and Frenzy Regeneration by 75%. In the case of Thrash and Mangle, for example, you spam them. You're back to spamming them. You can hit them over and over and over and over and over again. And you see there as well, it reduces the cost of Iron Fur by 50%. Iron Fur is baseline for all druids now, of course, but it does cost 40 rage. So it will cost 20, of course, during the Berserk window. But let me go over here just to show you that, and to compare later on in the video, because Berserk actually has a pretty neat animation. Right, so you can spam Thrash, you can spam Mangle, get in there, and then of course your Iron Fur costs way less, so you can get big stacks That was Fright to 4 to 5. Iron Fur still stacks to 8 maximum. If you ever got it to 8 stacks, I don't know, maybe, but during a Berserk window, if you pool to 100 rage and then go into Berserk and then just spam jam with generating rage on mangles and potentially getting gore resets in there, you can definitely get a lot of armor. And on that note, there is a slight tweak to Iron Fur. I don't know if it's because the gameplay is probably, you know, the game squish, rather, is changing a bit, so our core stats are going way, way down, right? So we have very little stats in comparison. This character, though, if you go to the VOD, and it's still in the dungeon piece, Nobbel had his copied character in the dungeon. And it might have been breaking some things. He still had his Heart of Azeroth working. He still had all the passives working from the essences there. And some of the mobs that we were trying to kill were bugging out because he probably shouldn't have been dealing damage to them with things that don't exist in the game or shouldn't exist in Shadowlands. But his character was like 130 eye level because he has heroic and high-end Mythic Plus gear from BFA. Heroic Raid, I should be clarifying there. Now, my mythically geared character is going to be like 145 or so eye level. I'm 81. That's with getting a couple pieces of loot. I've actually gotten some shoulders and boots and a ring today. It's all 110 loot from the normal dungeon. So it was funny to see how much damage he was doing and how I could not hold threat because he's 50 eye levels higher than me. But it was comical, to say the least. Even popping Berserk and getting in there and trying to do everything I could, it was impossible. So the damage scaling is interesting. But that whole blurb goes back to Iron Fur here. Iron Fur currently, let me see if I might double check here, can stack to 8. The agility scaling of Iron Fur right now is 75%, but obviously our stats are pretty gigantic in comparison. It's at 90% agility scale currently, and everything is subject to change in these videos, right? We're just kind of getting the baseline from one expansion to the next. But that does mean a little bit more for like the long-term effects of eye level being more prevalent for Bear. I don't know if it's going to matter too much, but because of how things are shaping up right now, Bear Druid might be, because of Nature's Guardian and how self-healing and things work, we might see like a verse mastery verse style, but you'll want to do eye level over everything potentially because of how Iron Fur scales with your agility. So that could be a determining factor there, a little one, but that's how Iron Fur shapes out right now. What else do we have baseline here? Let's go over just the core pieces. What do I have? So Roar for all specs are back, but obviously if you're a bear and you're in bear form and you roar, you stay in bear form. Restoration Druid and Balance Druid get forced into bear form, or if they're in cat or bear already, they stay in those forms. Cat can still roar in cat form. We have Cyclone makes a return. Cyclone does have to be cast in caster form, so not exactly sure when a bear druid will actually cast Cyclone. Maybe if you've got stuff CC'd and you have things stunned or slowed away from you so you actually can do something with it. Otherwise, it seems kind of strange, other than the potential you can use it in PvP baseline now without taking the talent, so you can take something else. I don't know. It's a weird one to be in for bear. Same thing with like Roots. Roots takes you out of bear form. So, but you can still do everything else. Like you can soothe and give your roar and everything. The things you should be doing in bear form are still there. You can still decurse in bear form. That hasn't changed. Rebirth, your Druid res is still the 100% health heal. It still costs 30 rage for bears, but it is instant cast for them. We got into a big discussion about battle reses a little bit today on stream, but I don't. If it's instant cast, it costs a resource. If it's not costing you, if it's not costing you a resource, as a cast time. So that's your trade-off of how the battle reses work in the game: resource and instant, or no resource and cast time. That's how they've balanced them out. But the other battle reses are still the weaker one. It's like 30% health and 20% mana. So this one is a lot stronger because that's, I guess, the original. That's how that works. You also have Wrath baseline now. All druids have Wrath baseline. A lot of talking today. So you have your Wrath, and obviously you have Moonfire baseline. I don't know when you're going to use Wrath as a bear. I don't know. Maybe when you're pulling stuff before and it runs into you, so you're going to Moonfire a bunch of things and you Wrath something. I don't know. When you can't be in melee, you just spam. You can't just spam Moonfire because it does low damage, but you can at least hit Wrath. Maybe if you get kited. Excuse me. I don't know. This music summarizes my thoughts on Guardian Wrath, but if you know of something else you could do with it, then let me know. Bark Skin. All druids have it. You already have it right now. It's still the 90-second cooldown baseline, of course, before Survival of the Fittest. And speaking of Survival of the Fittest, you are the only druid now that has Survival Instincts because SI was removed from Feral Druids, which is a big sad for the cats. That was a... oh, my goodness. I'm not talking today. That was a big sad for the cats because you still have it at 50%, 6 seconds, 2 charges, still can be used with Survival of the Fittest. Not sure if cats will get it back. There's obviously feedback about it, but that's that. Let me get a drink real quick. That's a tough one. Ferocious Bite is baseline for all druids. But now, for cat weaving purposes, you have Ferocious Bite. Feral Affinity, to get into the affinity side, you get Maim with Feral Affinity. And this makes me wonder about Heart of the Wild. So cat weaving has been a thing for a long time on the Guardian Druid. We used to be able to cat weave when you're not tanking. And I am curious how it will work out because Heart of the Wild's a 5-minute cooldown. And granted, of course, you can still take Feral Affinity and still grab the extra finisher and Rip and the extra builder and damage in Rake, and then you get Maim, maybe for an extra stun. But of course, you get the movement speed basic. But the 5-minute cooldown on Heart of the Wild to go cat form and to get in there for some extra damage, because it does, you get the extra energy regeneration, of course. It's a little bit weaker, actually, in Shadowlands. If you come at it, you have to Moonfire, and you do this crazy, weird, crazy flip if you're a Worgen to activate your Galactic Guardian there, and then go right back into it. It's kind of a cool little, it's like extra shape-shifting, but it lasts for 45 seconds on a 5-minute cooldown. So it might be worth it. It's going to be really niche. I mean, I have to go, of course, I got to tank again. I got to go back in bear form, right? So the cat weaving may come back. It definitely may come back. Or it'll be really annoying in like arenas and PvP when you're actually a Guardian Druid, but you go cat weave to get some damage out when there's CC out, and then you go back to bear form and be super annoying. If any of you are the bear druids or the prot paladins that are queuing for PvP, you should feel ashamed of yourselves. Go to battlegrounds, RBGs, don't go into arenas, and then never die, and then eventually wear down the healer mana. Come on now. 8-minute games aren't fun. Maybe for you. I don't know. Swipe, which is the filler move, of course, for bears. And, of course, cats have it too. Where is it? Right here. Swipe is a target capped ability. Currently, 5 targets. But Thrash has no target cap. Thrash Bear is still the pretty okay instant damage. And then the bleed that you stack 3 times generates rage whenever you cast it. Swipe, of course, will be your filler. Only 5 targets, though. But your big AoE, of course, to pull threat and pull everything together is going to be Thrash. Right. The target caps are really not that affecting tanks. There are some, like in Swipe's case, but a lot of tank abilities, like people brought up Avenger's Shield lol in chat today, but Avenger's Shield for Prot Paladin has always had a target cap and always bounced around. But things like Thunderclap don't have a target cap, but things like Revenge do. They have like that conal target cap and stuff like that. So there's things. I'm not for or against the target cap situation. We talked about it on stream a whole lot on the Balanced Druid Day. It differentiates potential player skill when it comes to like a DPS thing. For a tank, and we did the dungeon. If you haven't watched any of the dungeon coverage yet, you'll get, you know, a POV from a healer soon, and then an enhancement shaman next week, and then an assassination rogue after that. But the target cap situation puts DPS at a choice-to-choice, moment-to-moment thing. where they get to, well, there's lots of mobs here, so I gotta make sure I use the AoE ability. If there's not a lot of mobs here, then they both work. But if everyone's AoEing in a 5-man or everyone's AoEing in a raid, I don't know if you're gonna really notice a big difference because everyone has all their abilities to all stack on top of each other. Whatever. And then to go back on Berserk, and we of course showed off the fact 15 seconds, 3-minute cooldown. Mangle, Thrash, Growl, Frenzy Regeneration by 75%, cooldown reduction, and of course the cast of Iron Fur. This brings me over to Incarnation, Guardian of Ursoc. This is a big boy button. And that's what all I put in my notes is a big boy button, big bear boy button. Because you have the baseline Berserk back, so you have the potential to weave that in here and there, right? I get that. But Galactic Guardian has been so good for a very long time because of how smooth it is and the extra bit of gameplay, I guess, with the procs. And Soul of the Forest is just strong as a passive. But this is crazy. So Guardian of Ursoc now adds 15 more seconds to the duration, so it goes to 30 seconds. The only way you even get this is the current live version, but the live version is just the cooldown on your melee abilities goes to 1.5 seconds, so that goes to the global. And the Mangle hits 3 targets. And you get an armor buff of 15%. But because Iron Fur is stronger now, this is now, of course, the Mangle, Thrash, Growl, Frenzy Regeneration, cooldown reduction. The cost of Iron Fur by 50. Mangle hits all 3 targets, or it has a 3-target cleave effect when you spam Mangle. And it's a 30% health last stand bump. Bears like themselves some HP. Frenzy Regeneration heals based off of your HP. Your Mastery increases your health and healing received. And talking about Frenzy Regeneration, there's a new rank 3 Frenzy Regeneration you're getting at level 52 that increases all healing received by 20% while Frenzy Regeneration is active. Before you freak out or wonder, we don't know if it stacks and makes Frenzy Regeneration double dip and it deals 20% more healing to you, or if this means that while Frenzy Regeneration is active, all other heals will heal you for more, like it's a 2-part thing. It doesn't read that way, but I don't level on these characters and certain things just aren't working right now. So I didn't have any feedback if this was on or off or double dipping or not, but that's still an additional healing component where you know you're going to be Frenzy Regenerationing when you're taking a lot of damage, and your healer is going to be healing you when you're taking a lot of damage. So it stacks together. And as you see another talent change talking about like defensives and things and looking at Guardian of Ursoc, Renewal is here because now Resto Affinity gets your Ursol's Vortex. A lot of the times you spec Resto Affinity though. So if you have Resto Affinity and your passive Ysera's Gift is healing you and you put Frenzy Regeneration up and it ticks during that time, it'll also do more healing. That's like triage and small. But this, putting up a Frenzied Regen inside of a Guardian of Ursoc with the 30% health bump and hitting a Renewal, which is 30% of your overall health, you can snap yourself up and respond yourself as the Guardian Druid. A lot of tanks for a while now have had issues with how the game has sort of changed away from you feeling super self-sufficient by yourself and needing a ton of outside help. That's still going to be the case, but at least there's going to be somewhat of a moment of power here if the fight calls for it, if the Giant Mythic Plus dungeon pull calls for it, where you have some agency over your survivability because you can, say, for example, you're pulling 12 mobs, you can Ursoc into it, so you can just spam Thrash to get everything stacked to 3, then spam Mangle to get all that rage to keep your Iron Fur up. And then, of course, you're going to take damage, so you can weave your Frenzy Regeneration into a Renewal, into a Frenzy Regeneration. You have a good solid 8 to 10 seconds there where you're going to feel really tanky, and your healer can deal with other things or help with damage or CCs or other parts of the encounter you're dealing with right now, if that's like what you're doing. So that's a pretty cool bonus. It does look bad to lose, you know, your Ursol's Vortex, but you can just take it here. Balance Affinity is Typhoon, so you can't get both anymore. But then what's the trade-off, right? You can't make the Druid Toilet as well as a Bear Druid anymore, but you get a little more survivability potential, and you get to Cat Weave. So there's some trade-off coming around here that really depends on how what kind of a bear druid you are or what you're looking for. If you're looking for the extra cat DPS and the weaving, or you want like all survivability and all control. But if you want all the control, just bring a balanced druid, because they get literally everything. Because they can take mass entanglement, and they have baseline typhoon, and they can take Ursul's vortex, you know, and they have solar beam. So they have a lot going on for them, which is why the cat stuff is like a little. And then again, if you kind of combined, survival of the fittest is obviously huge, right? The cooldown reduction on both bark skin and SI is big, but now it also makes Guardian of Elune potentially not as trash, because the mangle interaction with both Iron Fur and FRs being stronger, if FR might double dip or at least just do more with frenzied regeneration windows once you get your rank 3. The health pools have changed too. I know I didn't mention it. It's 32% on live, but this doesn't exist. So it's a bit of a trade-off here as well. So things are shifting around just a bit. Just a bit with the Guardian Druid. And I think there's something there that is both good and maybe a little bit but they're also like, Double check my notes here real fast. Even though the thing is, the 32% FR on live, we were trying to figure out if there was like an extra passive involved there. At level 58, let me see in the database here. Yeah, level 58, or sorry, not 58, 85. Too much reading today. At 85, there is a passive in the spellbook where you gain 33% increased healing on frenzied regen. I'm pretty sure that's still in, because the baseline frenzied regen you get originally is only 18% of your health. So we're not sure if they've pulled the whole base down and then the 33% hits it to put it to 24%. But these are all BFA like leveling stuff that doesn't really matter, right? We're not covering leveling changes. We're not covering covenant abilities or soul binds in these videos. That's not the point of my coverage. Also, a lot of that stuff is not locked into place yet. The only other thing, well, two more things that I have on my notes right here to mention is Lunar Beam still exists. The biggest point of feedback that we were bringing up today, it was about Lunar Beam situations. And I just don't know why it's so bad. It's a 75-second cooldown for... the heal has actually never been that bad, but the damage is pitiful, and it doesn't move with you, so it's stationary. And I don't know why it's not something a little more zappy. So there's a couple different things that came up in chat today. Lower the cooldown to like a minute or 45 seconds. More damage just done. Move with the bear. Like instead of the beam just sitting on you, it actually moves with you. So if I go, I'm out of combat real quick here. It just, hello? Oh, Pulverize on cooldown, Doug. I hate Pulverize doing that. It just doesn't do anything. It just sits here and you can walk out of it. It's kind of neat, right? The whole moon above you looking down and the whole Galactic Guardian, Moonfire synergy and things, but move with the bear at least. My other big option was that it could have synergy with Galactic Guardian for fights that have like AoE potential and be not just like take rend and tear. What if it, every time it pulsed to heal you, because it heals for once a second for 8 seconds, it would hit a random target within the Lunar Beam with Moonfire. So while you're pulling a whole bunch of mobs into your Lunar Beam and you pop it, you get like a Moonfire and a Moonfire and a Moonfire. And then if you have Galactic Guardian talented, if that's the combination you want to run, then you get more chances for it to trigger the free, automatic Moonfire on the target. So you get Moonfire again. And then when that happens, you get your Moonfire proc. Then you can funnel into the core target you're supposed to be hitting. So it's something that adds a little bit more than nothing. Is the feedback we're getting right there. But nothing else has really changed here across the board. All these are still the same. The balance affinity is still 3 yards. Resto affinity is back to 3% healing. It's 1.5 right now. That's because of health changes. So it's just basically reverting that back because our health pools are getting squished. So to make it worth it. Feral affinity. So the movement speed, like we said before, you get Maim, Soul of Forest, Galactic Guardian. These are all the same. Earth Warden still pretty strong. Other big change here to wrap up on, which is part of a weird but also good change, as you saw there with Pulverize. Pulverize has been changed rather substantially. 30-second cooldown now. On live, no cooldown. On live, it eats 2 charges of Thrash on your target. Still does that. But it reduces all damage you take on live by 9% for, I believe it's 20 seconds. Right now, it does a little more damage than a Maul, which unfortunately Maul is still kind of boring. But it debuffs the target you're attacking to deal 20% less damage to you for 10 seconds. My initial thoughts on this is that the cooldown is slightly too long. 20 seconds would be too short. 30 feels too long. So we're talking about how 25 seconds would be good. Because it's not all of that damage anymore. It's basically a single target rotational bark skin. Because obviously you've got bark skin here, but it's a minute-long cooldown, even with, SOTF. But if you don't have SOTF, you have Guardian of Lunar Earthward, and then it's back to 90 seconds. So it's a single target rotational 30-second bark skin on the target hitting you. Very patchworky, not about damage, which is why I was wondering about where the damage feels are going to come from. Obviously, you can still do the bramble stuff with AoE and things of that nature, and you could cat-weave if you need to do damage when you're not tanking. But Pulverize it's stronger and weaker at the same time compared to the live version. But I think, and what we talked about today, and Sai was in chat again today too, a bunch of the Guardian community was there, talking about how it's basically only taken right now because it deals damage. And not to be that guy about the whole, tank shouldn't be all about just doing damage. There's obviously optimizations there that I understand. If you're not dying, do more damage. You basically go to the point of do as much damage as you can without dying. And I get that. I totally get that. It's just not every tank thinks that way, so they want the extra. I used this in the dungeon run the whole time. It worked on the bosses way better than the trash. On the trash, I'd basically build and hit the big angry mob. Or if it was a solo pull with a bunch of little trash minion ads, I would obviously Pulverize the big threat. But it definitely felt okay on the bosses because you can keep it up and you can use a Pulverize window and then go into an SI and then go into a bark skin and then go back into a Pulverize window. So you can smooth that incoming damage, which is Mike's biggest thing, right? Tanks are always about smoothing incoming damage, and Pulverize will do that. Part of it. A little bit. Maybe. It gives you an option that isn't just Rend and Tear. Rend and Tear looks like a very good AoE option. Pulverize, a very good single targety patchworky option. Lunar Beam. That's gonna do it. That's the Guardian Druid. That's all of my notes. That's everything. I know the affinity change is a little bit wonky. So let me know in your comments. Let me know in my comments your thoughts down below. What you think of the overall changes here to the Bear Druid. It doesn't really change the game, but it adds some stuff, some moments of power, some player interaction. Berserk being back baseline is so big. You actually have a button to hit almost every other tank because Brewmaster's getting buttons back as well. They have Touch of Death coming back and something else now, so they have their button, and every tank now has a button that feels impactful. Again, today, my merch down below if you're looking to keep me going, doing the things. There's tons of designs by Fabelina and other artists on the merch store, and I'm sure there's probably some free shipping madness going on right now, and there's stickers and mugs and hoodies and sweatshirts and whoever knows what else, but it helps me able to keep working with other artists, and of course keeps me on the internet. That's how merch with content creators works. But thank you very much for watching. Restoration Druid coming up next with the Druid wrap-up video B-roll dungeon run as I'm healing the dungeon. And then we got Shaman after that. Check out the channel guide for all the other pieces like the VOD and the dungeon run and everything else we'll be doing here. Thank you again, and I'll see you all in the next Shadowlands alpha testing video breakdown thing. Just hit the button, Adam. There you go. You did it.